Hey, it's Martin here from SIRS Electronics, and today I'm going to show you two different ways to solder the leads onto your LED strip and how to solder two pieces of LED strip together. First off, once you already have your lead selected and the length of it that you want, you must strip off the insulation at the end. You want to strip off maybe 2 to 3 millimeters off the end so that you can expose the bare copper wire. Once you've done that, what you want to do is apply some of the solder onto the bare copper wire at the end, so that whenever you apply it onto the strip, it could stick. So what you do is you heat up the bare copper, and as you're heating up the copper on the wire, you push it into the solder. What that's going to do, it's going to melt the solder off and cause it to stick onto the wire there. So you repeat the process for both of the sides. And once you've done that, and you make sure it's nicely covered all the way around, you're done with that. So the next thing you do, you get a piece of solder, and you're going to have to tin your LED strip. So you want to hold it down with something relatively heavy. In this case, I'm using a roll of solder here, and you hold it down on a flat surface. Then you want to find your copper pads, and what you're going to do, you're going to make sure your solder iron tip is clean, and what you're going to do is you're going to heat up the pad, and as you're heating up the pad, you're going to push in the solder, and the solder is going to touch the tip of the iron, and as you touch the tip of the iron with the solder, you're going to touch the copper pad with it. And what it's going to do is going to heat up the pad, heat up the solder, and it's going to drip it onto the pad over here. So you repeat the same process for your positive and negative pads here. And once you've done that, you want to make sure you don't heat it up too much, and you also want to make sure that the two beads that you dropped in there of solder aren't touching each other, so that there's enough room for there not to be any shorts or anything like that. Once you've done that, the next thing you do is you grab your lead that already has the solder on it, and you're going to heat up the bead on the pad first, and as you're doing that, you're going to apply heat to the wire, and you're going to push it down onto the pad. So as you're applying heat to the bead on the pad, you also apply heat on the wire, and you push it down with the tip of your iron here. So you repeat the process for both of them, and you got to make sure your polarity is correct. You got your positive with your with your red, and your negative with your black. So you repeat the process, and then you hold them in place until it cools off, and now you got them on their solid. So now I'm going to show you the next part of soldering two pieces of strip together. So for example, let's say you have two pieces of strip. Okay. In this case, we're using a 3528 white strip, and there's only two little pads on there. So the easier way to do this is, once you've cut them down straight the line, usually they're circle pads, and what you want to do is you want to cut off a little bit of the strip so that you expose the pad so that it's right on the edge, and there's no more room for anything else. So the pad must be right on the edge when you cut it like that, and you want to do the same on the other side. And once you've done that, what you do now is you're going to apply solder onto the pads the same way we did before. You apply the iron solder tip onto the pad, and you push in your solder onto there, and you let it melt and drip off, and you do the same. And then you're going to repeat the process for the other side of the strip. You're going to hold it down. Do the same thing over here. Okay, now that you have two small beads on each pad, what you want to do is line up your positive with your positive, negative with your negative, and make sure you line them up as straight as you can on a flat surface. And once you've done that, what you do is you line up the beads. Once you've got the beads lined up, what you do is you're going to melt off the first bead and push the solder onto the second bead. So you're going to melt it and push it off so that the melted metal moves along to the next pad, and once they do that, they hold each other, and they're going to cool off, and they're going to hold. So you repeat the same process over here. and that's it. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Now you see you got two pieces of strip united again, and this is not going to come off. So if you guys have any questions or comments, just go ahead and drop us a comment there in the comment box, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So guys, thank you very much for watching.